Because the Bible said not to.
Right.
Right?
No. What happens is the Spirit of the Son dwells in me, and that's why it says that it's a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart.
Yes.
The Spirit of the Son comes and dwells in me, and it starts discerning what I'm thinking about what I see. And it discerns away the wisdom of the serpent, and it highlights and esteems the wisdom of God.
Yes.
And now what that does is it guards my heart from making an unrighteous judgment about what's happening.
Is that taking that thought captive?
Wow.
Yeah.
Taking the thought captive. So Jesus, the Spirit in him, kept him from making an unrighteous judgment about what was happening.
Sure.
Which an unrighteous judgment would have been, God's abandoned me.
Yep.
God's forsaken me. I'm not really the Son. I'm not full of glory and honor. Look at what these people are doing to me. See, that would have been an unrighteous judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had he made an unrighteous judgment, that judgment would have then dwelled in his heart, and then that would have actuated his thoughts, his feelings, and his actions. Which is what we've all done.
Sure.
I took an unrighteous judgment into my heart when that teacher came to me and said that I was too much. I was too intense for people.
Mm-hmm.
I took an unrighteous judgment into my heart. And then that unrighteous judgment began to judge me. Not as I ought to be.
Sure.
That's why the Bible says, judge not lest you be judged. It's not saying don't judge other people lest they come back and now judge you. It's saying don't judge people. Don't make a judgment that will then come back and judge you. If I implement a wisdom, let's say if I function from the flesh, if I implement a wisdom in my life that says God's unhappy with people who are committing the works of the flesh, they're now separate from God. God separates himself from people who commit the works of the flesh. Mm-hmm. If I have that wisdom dwelling in me, what do you suppose that wisdom's going to do to me the first time I find the fruit of the flesh manifesting in me?
Mm-hmm.
That same wisdom is going to judge me.
Yeah, right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's more easily understood when you put it in the terms of the wisdom.
Yeah.
Because if I judge someone with the wisdom, and then that wisdom judges me, that makes more sense that way. Yeah.
And that's what James was saying in his letter.
Yeah.
He was talking to those guys. Let us reason about this wisdom you're implementing to judge the poor people as being less than the rich people. Let us look at that wisdom and see what that wisdom produces in you. And so then he takes the royal law and said, okay, let's look at this one law. This law says to love your neighbor. This is the chief law. And if you love, then you do good. Okay? He said, so let's look at the wisdom you've implemented to judge these other people. Now, what will that wisdom now do to you?
Yeah.
See how that wisdom judged them?
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't loving the people.
Right.
And so now the wisdom they implemented to judge other people was now also judging them. And so James was pointing out, how can that wisdom you're continuing in save your soul? How can that bring about salvation in your soul? It can't. In fact, what it will do will judge you guilty and a transgressor every time, over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
It will never save your soul. And that's why he says, faith without works is dead.
Yep.
This persuasion. You know, Paul talked about the obedience to the faith. Obedience to the faith.
That's right.
He talked about the faith as if it was a thing. And so faith is the faith.
Right.
This faith that Paul called the faith is powerless to save my soul unless I continue in what the faith says. So there's a faith that says, Greg, you're not defined by the flesh, man. You're not defined by your intensity. That faith is full of power to save my soul from being tormented by people saying I'm too intense.
Yeah.
Now, if I don't continue in that faith, then that faith is dead. So, the faith, without the work of continuing in what the faith says, is powerless to save my soul.